All right, Auto 2, what I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be showing you how to take apart a starter, and we'll do a little bit of starter testing here. Sorry, I don't always know where stuff is. The first thing I'm going to do is take a jumper pack, and I'm going to hook it up, and I'm going to go ahead and put power to this terminal, which is where the battery positive connects, and I'll pull this closer so you can see better. So I'll get right down here where the battery positive terminal connects, and I'll put my positive side of the jumper pack. My negative just needs to go anywhere on the case. And I can use a screwdriver to just jumper from the hot side to the, sorry, one sec here. Woo, Mr. L. Nice fireworks. Okay. To either side, or sorry, to the crank side. So I'm looking at the starter, and I'm looking for the S terminal, and there it is there. So that means if I touch this to there, these two terminals, it should crank the engine, and it's not. So that means the starter switch is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that's what it had. It had an intermittent no start when it was in my car. And so I'm going to go ahead and start by taking apart this solenoid, and I will do that just a moment here when I get an adapter. So let me pause because, oh, there it is. So I'll get my adapter and I'll get this guy off. So I'll take that guy off, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull the solenoid off itself. Oh, wrong size. I thought I had the right size. I don't. And this one is the right size. Okay. So we'll put our bolts there. We'll get this one here. Then this is a 92 Suburban starter, so you have to rotate this, and then this tab locks it in. There's the spring. There's the plunger that pulls the gear in and out. You can see the gear moving right here. And that gets sucked this way when we energize this coil. This guy's not working right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart, and we're going to take a look at it. So in order to do that, we can leave these two guys on. These are the two cover screws, but usually one of these has a wire going in there, and I think it's this one. So we're going to take that one off just to make sure we got the, in fact, I'll probably take them both off, because if they connect, one of them is going to connect to a wire on the inside. It should be this one. Actually, this one won't. So I think I'm good to go. So if I take the two cover bolts off, and if it doesn't want to come off, I'll know that I was wrong, that I needed to remove that one. But I don't think I did. So there's two little bolts and two washers. These two go together here. This is like that. This is a little spacer that went over here, right there. So I'm going to put that aside. Now this cover should come off. And I was wrong. No, I was right. Yep, this is the right one. Okay, so I did forget one thing though. This nut has to come off, because that guy is attached to a wire. This one does not. This one does. Okay, so that one comes off. And now I can lift this off. I've got this washer hanging me up. So I'll grab a little flat blade screwdriver that has something on it. There's that washer. I'll put that with that nut, and then this comes off. Now, this was that was a washer for right there, so that goes with that guy. So now when I look at this, I can see what was wrong. I had a burn spot right here on this copper contact. So this guy goes up and down like that. it hits the bottom of this guy, which is in good shape, and then it hits the bottom of this guy here, which is quite burned. You can see the burn mark there. So believe it or not, I can just take this guy out. I can sand this, and on this one, I can sand it, but I can, what's even better than that is I'll just flip it around 180 degrees, because where it's got the burn mark, it's quite, it doesn't want to come out of there, does it? It's, okay, so this washer is hanging me up, and that's going to be a challenge to get off. I'll pause it and come back and get it on. So what I realized, I need to hold the washer with the pliers, and I can thread this washer off, and once it's threaded off, actually I don't need to go any further, because now I can push it and rotate it 180 degrees and put it back in, and now I should be able to grab this washer with the pliers and thread it back in. And so it's threading back in right now, and hopefully, yep, I got it in the right position. It's a little hard to do because the pliers are wanting to hit the cover. So I'm trying to be careful not to do that. And I still got it in the right spot. That washer is really tight on there. I'm not used to seeing it so tight. Okay, I got it on, and that's in the right position. So now I can put this guy back down. Sorry, that's not the right spot. Okay, so it's this washer nut goes there. This is where the cable goes. This guy went on here. So I'll go ahead and tighten him down there. Okay, so he's on. So that's flipped around. So that should work now. And now I just have to sand this. So I'm going to pause and get some sandpaper. So here we go. I've got some sandpaper. And I'm just going to go ahead and sand this contact. You can't do this on every starter, but quite a few starters you can. All the General Motors starters you can. And again, this one was stuck in a position where it didn't want to crank the car. And so we're going to clean this, and we're going to put it on there. And then we'll test it. And then I think what I'll do is take apart the main part of the starter so you can just see what it looks like in there. Okay, so I've got it just about done. Looks pretty good. I don't have to do the other side, just this one side. So that looks pretty good. You can see it looks pretty well cleaned up there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. Drop it down in there. I'm going to sand this one, although it's not nearly so bad, but I will go ahead and sand it. You can see just after just a moment of sanding, that thing's nice and clean on the bottom there. So this will go right back there. Right like that. And the cover comes down like this. I got to get that guy back into his hole there. Okay, he goes there. He goes there. I'll go ahead and put this guy in there. It's a washer. And I take the nut here. Hopefully I can thread it on. Yeah, I was able to. Just going to manually snug this guy up. He's snug. Okay. I'm going to take these two guys. They had two washers. I'm going to go ahead and swap to my smaller socket. I'll get these two. This one goes here. This one goes here. This one goes there. Oop. Okay, those are snug. And this guy goes back on here. And this guy goes back on here. I can get him on there. Wrong size. Okay, so that guy's all back together. So now I'll come over here, put him in here. Oh, my spring. I forgot my spring. Now I got it. Okay, so that guy's back in there. Now I've got these two bolts. Try and get them back in the right spot. I think I got it. And I need to get this other one started. There it is. Okay, lastly, we got to put this guy back in here. I'll do it laying it down. And then this bolt goes through, hopefully. And we got it in there. Okay. Now, I actually expect this thing to work. I know you'll believe it when you see it. So again, this is the S terminal or start terminal. So we put red to positive there, black to negative here. And if we touch our screwdriver from the positive lead to that terminal, hey, it worked. Now it's not. It worked for a moment, now it's not. So that tells me it worked one time, but it didn't spin fast, and now it's not working correctly. So that obviously tells me something's wrong inside. So let's take it apart and look further on the inside. So we're going to look further on the inside, and I'll just get the solenoid out of the way really quick. Oh. So obviously that wasn't the only problem. In fact, it probably stopped there and then burned those contacts. I misinterpreted. I thought that burned contact was enough to do it, but it wasn't. So I'm going to put this socket in, and all we have to take a GM starter apart is these two bolts. The whole thing comes apart. Whereas most cars are similar. So I pull these two out. Remember, this stud was on the hole that's closest to the solenoid. Okay, so what I've done is I've pulled the back of the starter off, and you can see that there's a lot of brush material here. There's a bronze bushing in there to support the end of the armature. Here's the end of the armature right here. As I look down inside, grab the camera and look inside this guy, I can see a brush here and a brush here, a brush here and a brush here. That's our north-south poles. And what I notice is the brushes are worn out. You can see that this brush is worn down to the arm and the arm is shorting out. So it's really obvious to me that these two brushes are worn to the point where the arm is actually touching the commutator. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this guy off. And there's the armature there. A couple of washers that I might lose. So I'll put them there. They go on like this, not like that. I'm going to set those there, and you guys will see if I remember those. And look at the commutator. It is all burned up, and you can see that in the camera. It's supposed to have nice straight lines between and so on. So I'm going to sand this thing up, or I could sand it up, and then I could replace these brushes right here. They are completely worn out. You can see they're worn right down to the arms. So that's what the problem with the starter was. The brushes were worn out. Now, I can actually, there's a screw there. I can actually buy these new brushes, unscrew them, reattach them, clean the case out. I can sand the commutator here and get it all cleaned off. And that thing will work again, but it's really obvious why this starter is not working. So this solenoid contact was a little burned, but the brush is just entirely worn out, and this is rebuildable, and so on. I'll pause it here. So I'm going to show you that I can take some fairly coarse sandpaper, and I can just go like this on the commutator, and really quickly I get it cleaned up. So these copper bars, they come in pairs, and they're 180 degrees opposite from each other. So this bar connects to this loop, and then the other bar on the other side connects to the other loop. So I'm going to go a little further with the sandpaper. I've still got some significant burning here, and sometimes it's easier to go like this, especially if I have somebody here to hold it, which I don't. But I can go like that. And again, it's just a little hard to do by yourself, so I have to do it this way. So now it's starting to look pretty good, and I can take my copper, or my little pick, and I can go down in here and pull the extra copper stuff from between the bars so they don't short out on each other. I think you can see they're coming clean. So if I had a set of brushes, we could put them in here and test this. And I will see if I can get some. So now we've got them, all those bars pretty well sanded and cleaned out. And you can see that the grooves are all clean. So I'll pause and see if I can get some brushes. All right, so here we go. We're putting in new brushes. I've got a little 1/4-inch ratcheting box, and I'm taking out this brush. I put 3 of them in just to spare you the time. And there's a little bolt here. You can see I'm taking this bolt out right there. And here's a new brush. And here's the new one compared to the old one. You can see, if I get them there correctly, you can see the difference between them, how much worn out this one is. And so there is a right way to put them. There's a correct way and there's a wrong way. And so I'm making sure that I'm putting them in. The tip of the brush has a slope to it. And so it's sloping off to the left. So I'm going to make sure I put that in the correct way. And I'm screwing the new one back in. And once I get this screwed back in, I'll show you a couple of things that are interesting. So again, I'm using this 1/4" ratcheting box, or trying to. Get it in my hand a little more. Try and get it so you can see what I'm doing, sort of. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this guy down. Again, I'm trying. All right. Let's see what wire it is. Okay. Okay, so that's tight. So what I've got is, I got 4 new brushes. You can see them all. They're all leaning that way so that the armature is going to rotate this way. I did clean out some of the old brush material that was down in there. So I'm going to wipe the bench off. Try and clean the bench up a little bit. Probably should have done this before. Start rolling the tape, but anyways, there we go. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put this together, and what I need to do is put this armature up in there. So I got to pull these guys back, like this, that, almost there. Almost there. Okay, not quite there. Okay, having a little bit of trouble. Okay, I think one of the problems I have is where I have this. I can't get this arm back far enough because it's hitting that wire. So let me stop the video and let me loosen and change that position. So I was able to reposition that guy, and I'm going to bend that little tab up so it doesn't rub on the armature. And then I'll show you a couple more things. There we go. So it looks like we're good now. Bending this away from the armature a little bit. Okay, so you can see the 4 brand new brushes. You can see that they're in there. You can also see that this brush is sitting a little bit off. So I'm going to try and loosen it slightly and see if I can square it up. So I just loosened it. And let me see if I can sort of pry it straight. There we go. So now I'm just going to take my ratchet and snug it back up because it wasn't hitting the commutator squarely. And again, it's not. Okay. So I'm going to loosen that up again. And then I have to hold it there. And now I'll tighten it. Let me see if I can do it this time. Okay, so we're pretty good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of white grease on the end of this where it goes into the bushing. So when it goes in, it wants to have a little lubrication in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this guy back on. And I've got the 2 bolts. Actually, I'll wait to put that on so I can kind of see where the bolts are. So I'm going to go ahead and I believe it's this pin has to go in there. So I'm going to pull this guy out. And I'm going to try and put this guy in there like this. I got to get that collar into there. And I'm struggling just a little bit. There, I got it. Okay. Now I'm going to put that pin in. Just looking for where that pin is. There's the pin. Oop. Let's see if I got it. Yeah, it's still working. Okay, that's working. So now that's in the correct place. So now I've got two bolts that go in there. And I think you remember that one of them goes down one side, one goes down the other side. And you'll notice that on these brushes, by the way, there's two insulated wires, this one and this one. And there's two non-insulated wires, so those are ground wires. They can touch ground. And I'm going to look and see if I can see where those bolts come through. No, I can't. So I'm going to pause and find out with a flashlight. Give me one sec. Okay, so with the flashlight, I figured out that my plate goes right here. And then remember the bolt with the stud was over by this guy here. And so I've got to find my hole down there. And again, I'm looking for it. I can see it with the flashlight. There it is. So hopefully I can get to it. Okay, maybe I started it. I think nope, thought I had it. And maybe there. Let me try the other one. So I would like it to be easier. Okay, I think I got it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my socket that fits this. Let me pause this for a second. Okay, so I got my tool here. I'm going to thread this in. And I'm going to thread this guy in. Okay, so now that's all together. And I should be able to put my spring back on and my solenoid back on. And I'll put this guy in here, get him over there, get my two bolts started. That one started. Get this one started. Now all I have to do is put my little bushing back in here and put my bolt in there. And they should be back together, and we'll test it with the jumper pack. Okay, so it's all together. I'll pause it. I'll get my jumper pack. Okay, so here I am with the jumper pack. Red to the battery terminal right there. Black to ground the case. I'm just going from here to here. which is what your ignition switch does. I'm just doing it with a screwdriver, and there it goes. That starter's absolutely fixed. We're going to go upstairs now and do a starter free running current draw test, and we'll see how it looks at that point. We'll either keep it or not. Look at the grease on me. Look as ugly as sin. Okay, hang on. Okay, so what you've got here is, this is a starter on our starter tester. We're going to do a starter free running current draw test. Yeah, it's me, I'm here. We're going to do a starter free running current draw test. And what we're going to try and do is see how much current this thing's drawing. So what it should be is, it should kick up to about 120 amps on this dial right here. It's a little hard for you to see, but I'll bring the camera closer in just a moment. And it should settle down to about 80 amps. So if I bring this guy over here so that you can see it. Sorry, hope I didn't make you dizzy again. So, as usual, I'm stuck all over the place. Okay. So it should kick up to about 120, which is that second black mark, and settle down to about 80, which is 2 marks below 100. We're going to see what it does. So what I've done here is I've hooked up a battery positive to the terminal where the positive lead goes. This switch simulates coming from the ignition switch, and then just ground on the case. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring this a little closer so that hopefully you can see what the screen says. There it is. Okay. So you can't really see, but I'm going to go ahead and start this. You may be able to see it now. So this one went all the way up to about 170 amps and dropped down to 130. This thing was in a big American V8, and it was a slow cranker. It would crank slow because it has too much current draw, which means that the coils in here are shorted. They have too little resistance, which lets this thing draw too much current. So it's an inverse relationship, right? You've got too little resistance, you've got too much current draw. So now let's compare. So this one has high current draw. This is one I just had from my car a long time ago. Here's the one we just rebuilt. And we're going to see how this one looks after rebuilding it. Hopefully you can see me hooking this up. Again, this is called the starter free running current draw test. Free running means it's not spinning the engine. And I can already tell you that this one's way more torquey because I have to hold it. It wants to flip up. So I'm going to look at it and see what it does here. So this one isn't as good as it should be. It should settle down to 80, but it kicks up to about 150, 160 and drops down to about 100. I'm going to do it so you can see it here, hopefully. So you can see the screen. Here we go. So it went up there around 150, 160 and dropped down to about 105. So this starter is probably, I mean, it's usable. It's definitely usable. But it still has kind of high current draw. But it's rebuilt, and this thing would last a long time. So we've just proved our repair, and we can see that it's running about 100 amps, a little bit more than we like, but it's in good shape. So there we go. That's all. So that's we've finished looking at starter rebuilding and replacing the brushes and so on, and then doing what we call a starter free running current draw test.